Hello again, and thanks for checking out the Back to Formula podcast, where two longtime friends continue to entertain each other and others with our movie discussions and nerd culture discussions. My name is Jordan. I'm here with my co-host,
Christian. How's it going, everybody?
Hey guys, and today we are closing out our DC discussion. Thank fucking Christ, because I'm sick of talking about DC films.
Right.
We got Aquaman and Shazam on the list today. Birds of Prey was recently touched on a couple months ago when it was relatively fresh on home release, so we're not really gonna bother talking about that because we've already delved into that months ago. But we also have the Snyder Cut on our menu as well, because we have not forgotten about that.
And we definitely have some thoughts. I think both of us were pretty strong in our beliefs one way towards the Snyder Cut. And in a way, we've been proven wrong, and in another way, we have not. So we'll touch on that. And before we start, I do want to say I think I'm speaking for both of us here when I say we are very happy to be done with DC, because I think we're getting a little tired of this topic. And word to Josh, this does not diminish the impact of our conversation. I think we still have great things to talk about, some points to go over, but man, are we looking forward to getting into something new? Am I right?
Yeah, most definitely. And at the end of the episode, we'll tell you guys what we got lined up for next one. Kind of just want to wait and kind of dive into that afterward. But I say any housekeeping items we got. I don't think there's really anything going on. I did see that Wonder Woman got delayed again to October.
Wonder Woman did get delayed again. That's right. Tenet got delayed by a few weeks, right?
No, actually a couple weeks. So it's still slated for a July release, but I think it's coming out July 31st instead.
Okay, so there's that. I know for some movie news recently, I was getting a little depressed because we saw that AMC apparently is having a big struggle right now staying open, which definitely blows my favorite theater chain personally. And then later they released another statement saying that they might be okay and they're going to open. So fingers crossed, really. Yeah, but either way, I think both of us hope that all theater chains will stay open for as long as they can, because nothing really beats that experience, and I sure as hell miss it.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, there's nothing like going to a movie and actually experiencing it with no distractions, all the sound in the world being directed and coming from one screen. I mean, anybody can watch a movie at home and yeah, like you'll be able to capture the feel of the movie and stuff like that. But honestly, there's just too many distractions at home. It takes you out of it, having to pause every so often. And really the only time, I mean, I don't know if I speak for any other parents here, but really only other time that you can get through a movie without, having to fucking be interrupted multiple times when the kids are sleeping. By the time they're asleep and, you got time to yourself, it's like, damn, do I really want to watch this right now? Because I'm going to probably fall asleep.
Yeah, and maybe that doesn't relate to necessarily everybody. Me as a parent myself, I feel the same exact way. And even just without that, there's probably lots of different varieties of distractions out there that theater experience just really helps take care of, at least for a good 2, maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours. You can really just forget about the rest of the world, and there's something magical about that. I really miss it.
Yeah, it doesn't beat it. But before we dive into Aquaman, I do want to say that there's a bunch of rumors going around saying that Tenet is a whopping 3 hours and 15 minutes.
So yeah, it's a long movie. And is that really surprising to you, knowing that it's Christopher Nolan? I feel like that's right up his norm, right?
Well, I mean, from what I know, or from what we've gotten from him in the past, I mean, at bare minimum, a lot of his movies are at least 220, 230, 240, 245. But you also got to take into account that like 7 to 8 minutes of that is credits, and a lot of times these days they don't even put credits in the beginning of movies anymore. They're all usually at the end. So
True.
If you kind of take that away, the movie's like at least 3 hours and 7 to 8 minutes when it comes to actual like movie that you're getting. So I mean, you're dealing with time travel, you're dealing with like espionage and stuff like that. So I already know that like each hour is going to be an explanation of this does that and this is why we're doing this. And I have nothing. I'm not against that at all. Like I like those kinds of movies. You don't really see them a whole lot because I think the general audience of people just don't want to be in a movie theater for 3 hours. But I don't know.
It's definitely a bit of a risk. I don't think anybody would just get the green light from any studio to do that. I think Christopher Nolan has that.
He's definitely made a name for himself.
Yeah, they're willing to take that chance for him. But you're right. If it was anybody else doing it, I feel like that would not be the case because longer screen times, theaters have less time to show them in. they get less money, is the studio thinking, which is funny because that's not always true. Justice League kind of proved that, but that's going into a whole nother tangent there. Today, we are here to talk about Aquaman. First and foremost, this is a James Wan movie, and I remember when this one was first announced, they announced that James Wan was going to be taking this one. He apparently said he had the choice over doing The Flash or this, and he picked this because he felt like he could do something unique with this character that we haven't really seen before, which is not really saying much because how often have we really seen Aquaman in like a movie or live action? Unless he's talking like animated, of course.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the live action stuff from DC has always been Batman, Superman, Batman, Superman, Superman, Batman. Like, it's never been anything else beyond that, except for, like you said, in the animated lore. And I mean, it definitely is a nice, refreshing take on the superhero genre. I mean, it's got great visuals. I mean, granted, there's some corny and cringe dialogue, but I think that's just a staple comic book movie norm, really, at this point.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. And
all I really care about when I get these kinds of movies is how accurate is it, or how close to accurate is it. Um, do we have at least semi-decent or accurate comic book costumes, and do the characters act like the characters that they're written to act like? I'm always game for a new story. None of that really bothers me. I would appreciate if people stay true to their core values.
yeah, absolutely. I'm actually glad you say that because I know that you were actually reading some of the recent stories that this movie was obviously uh, playing itself on. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that when we get into it. I did want to say that I remember a lot of interesting reactions when this was announced. A live action Aquaman movie, up until this point, besides the comics, of course, but the general audience, not really into the comic books, kind of took Aquaman as a joke. Everybody was making fun of Aquaman at the time. It is what it is. And coming out of this one initially, I was really happy because I remember seeing it out of the theater, and I just remember thinking that that
You
movie
went to
was
the early screening. You got
yes,
it through Amazon, so you saw it like a week before I did, and I saw it opening night.
yes, they did partner with Amazon, and they had it so you could see it like a week early or maybe 2 weeks early, and I ended up doing that. And I remember letting you know how it was. Obviously, don't want to tell you about the movie, but I just remember thinking that I had a lot of fun with this movie, and it was so refreshing to say that because usually coming out of a DC movie, that for the most part up until then tried to take itself very seriously, very heavy movie. This one, it really took itself not that seriously at all, and I liked it all the more for it. And we're definitely going to get into it, but I just wanted to start off with your general impression when you first left the theater.
So I absolutely loved it. I mean, obviously there's that silver screen effect, but like the more and more I watched it, I grew to like it even more. I mean, there's definitely, I mean, again, tying back to what I said earlier, some cringe dialogue, but that stuff is not enough for me to say that I fucking hate the movie. It didn't feel like a Marvel movie. It felt like a DC movie to me. So those are definitely pluses in my opinion. I will say that, like, me myself now, if I were to go talk to myself in, I don't know, 2017, 2016, and I
Sure.
saw myself and I say, hey, you realize that Aquaman is going to make over $1 billion? I would tell myself to go fuck myself, because there's no way that the Fish Man is going to make over $1 billion of a movie. There's just no way that I would think that. And that's so crazy to me, because this movie had 160 to 200 million budget, but it made $1.48 billion. That's a lot of
Massive
fucking
hit.
money.
It's a hit,
And
absolutely.
I don't know if it was because of the visuals, or it was because a lot of women love Jason Momoa's sex appeal. I don't know, but James Wan had, in the words of I guess IG friend Brian Smith, James Wan had moldy lemons, and he made lemonade with Splenda. And that's really the best way that I can put it, because they still kept Zack Snyder's version of this character, or at least the looks behind of how he looked. And that sounds redundant, but they at least kept the way that he looked. But James Wan just completely flipped it on its head, did his own thing with it, but tried to stay true to the source material.
Exactly. That's the thing about it. And we are going to get into this more of like a play by play going over the movie, but just to kind of bounce off that with a little bit more of my initial reactions. Looking at this, it was really cool to see that this was not just a continuation of the Justice League Aquaman. In fact, I'd argue a lot of it is kind of a contradiction to that.
Oh
Whether we're
yeah,
talking about small retcons or not, he actually, I mean, just like you said, I don't want to copy you, but he took that version of Zack Snyder's Aquaman. He didn't just get a completely different version. He took that one and he just flipped it on its head and turned it into something I just wasn't expecting. This movie, it's so over the top, man. And I mean that in a good way. Usually when I say that, it's not good, but god damn it, in this movie, it kind of owns it. Everything is flashy. I feel like this movie like grabs everything it has at you, or everything the movie has, and it just throws it at the screen. It's almost like an explosion during action scenes. It's a very colorful movie. It tries to be funny. And I'm saying tries because a lot of the jokes don't land here, but
very miss for a lot of it.
a lot of the jokes don't land here. Definitely not perfect. You touched on this a little bit, and we will touch on it again. But definitely a little bit of a scrubby script here. I think a lot of the dialogue can be pretty bad at times.
Oh, even the
Acting,
delivery. Yeah, the delivery is just kind of bad for like quite a few people. I think honestly, I think the best acting in the movie came from uh, five forehead Patrick. What was his name? Patrick.
Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, Patrick Wilson and Willem Dafoe. I think they had like the best acting chops in the whole movie.
I can see that. Yeah, for sure. I would say that a lot of a good amount of the acting here does leave some to be desired. And a lot of this goes to what you mentioned earlier with, I don't think it was James Wan and him alone that was going to bring everybody in. I think the fact that the way that this movie was marketed, I think the trailers did a really good job of making it seem very different. Trailers kind of look crazy. I don't know if you remember those. And then Jason Momoa, he's kind of a big draw now. It's just what it is. A lot of girls love him. So he's kind of a big deal. And all of that together, I think he really made this movie fucking work for me, man. And it's so corny. I can't reiterate this enough. It's such a silly movie at times, but I just have to think that it's self-aware. It's got to be self-aware, man, because there's so many poses. There's so many times where like there's flexing to guitars playing in the background, and I'm just like, what the hell am I watching? But somehow I'm not annoyed. I'm not annoyed, and I think that's I think that's an achievement. But I guess we can go ahead and start off with the beginning here. I know we usually start off with this intro of Queen Atlanta. That's her name, right?
Yeah,
Queen
Atlanta. So basically, you get Jango Fett, and he owns a lighthouse. Jango Fett owns a lighthouse, and you know his mom washes up on the shore, and him being the creep that he is, he takes her into the lighthouse, and he resuscitates her, make sure she's okay, and he doesn't know anything about this woman. But I guess she's hot enough in his eyes to just bring her up into the to the lighthouse. So even though she's weird and quirky because she doesn't understand human life, or I guess the human world or surface world. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
sounding bigoted. The surface world, it makes for like cute little awkward, quirky romance that they have at the beginning, and you fast forward and she's knocked up, and they're gonna have a baby, and they have the baby, and all of a sudden, there's a hurricane named Arthur, so they name the kid Arthur. And I would say, like, what, maybe fast forward, maybe another, like, maybe he had to look like at least 3.5, 4 years.
Yeah, I thought he was like three. Oh, wait, 3 or 4. I was thinking.
Yeah, around 3 or 4. Atlantis comes back to find her, and like this is the part of the movie when I was like, oh shit, like this is gonna be that kind of movie, like. All of a sudden, like shit just starts popping off. Like the Atlantean niggas bust through the door. Jango Fett throws her trident, and then all of a sudden the cinematography kicks in. There's ridiculous like camera angles. There's like just the fighting scene was actually to me like,
bro. Yeah, it's popping off.
like that whole fight scene was just choreographed like. Just great in my opinion. Like it did a good job of like wrecking the house, but not wrecking the house enough to where it's like, oh well, damn, like where are they gonna sleep now? Because I feel like if Zack Snyder did this, the whole house would have been like demolished.
Oh yeah, the whole house would have been fucked up, dude. Like they would have had to live somewhere else.
Yeah. So and that's why that was another cool thing I liked about it too, is that the destruction in the house was pretty subtle, and it wasn't like this ridiculous like fight scene. And at that point, she realizes she's got to go back to Atlantis, and, I guess 25, 30 years goes by, and I'm sorry, I'm skipping a part. What did you think about the part where, he's a kid. He's like, I guess third or fourth grade, and the kids bully him, and all the animal or all the like the sea life lines up behind them. What do you think about that?
Honestly, I'm not a fan, dude.
Yeah,
I don't think that scene was well done. The only thing that I think was great in that scene was the special effects for the fish in the background. I thought they looked pretty great. But I think the kids bullying him and how they were talking to him and the way it was just played out, it just didn't work for me. I thought it was too corny at that point, dumb.
here's what would have been a cooler way to go about doing it. Right, the part where the shark bangs his head up against the wall, I think it would have meant so much more if the shark had just did that maybe once, twice, or three times, and like the shark just had an intense stare down with the bullies by himself instead of all the sea life lining up behind him like that. I just think the shark would have been a lot cooler just by
Yeah,
itself.
I can see that because it seemed like he was talking directly to the shark too, right? When he was doing that.
Yeah, and the shark was the only one that actually did something against the glass. But of course, it's like, oh, we gotta demonstrate his powers that he can talk to fish. So let's line the whole ocean up behind him. I'm
I just
like,
think it was a bit much when you see all the fish center to where he's looking and
yeah.
he's turning to look at the audience or not the audience, the class, and it's just
Well,
going.
well, it does turn into the audience because it zooms in on his face, and then we get a time jump. But that's what I'm saying is like, I just feel like that part, like it could have been done without. I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't really executed that well.
No, I would agree. I don't think that's far fetched. I think that one a little bit shoddy there, but fortunately that doesn't last too long, and then we get into the next scene here where we see a submarine that's about to be boarded by some pirates, right?
Yeah. So it's Black Manta. I guess they start shooting up the submarine. One thing I just realized, not to be nitpicky, is they were robbing the submarine, but what were they robbing it for? Like, I mean, they were just pirates, but like,
Like money.
what were they? Yeah, but like, where the fuck is like, what the hell are they gonna take on that submarine though? Like,
No, that's what I was asking. Like, I don't, not really sure. Like, are they going for money? I know they locked the dudes up in the back. What were they taking? I don't remember seeing them taking anything.
yeah, I don't remember them explicitly saying like in, a conversation in passing,
Grab
like,
that.
hey, we're gonna take this. Like, they just started shooting up the place. But I think what it is that I think they were trying to. I think that was Orm's plan of making them do shit to try to frame the surface. I think that might have been it. Who knows?
Oh, you know what?
Um,
You know what? Because he does mention later how he was talking about the submarine. No, because they're trying to get the submarine to. You're right, because they want to get the submarine to fake an attack on Atlantis, so they have an
oh,
excuse to
yeah.
fight the land. That's what happened. Sorry, guys,
Okay.
if you're listening, that was our fuck up. We forgot.
But yeah, so they show Black Manta killing the dude, and in all honesty, Black Manta is a cold motherfucker. Like, that guy is awesome, and I think he's honestly like one of my top villains because like in the comics, I don't know exactly what run it is, but like Aquaman and Mera have a child, and Aquaman kills. I'm sorry, Black Manta ends up killing his son.
Yes, I remember seeing that, and you also mentioned how that was a big part of it too, and that's kind of a rivalry with Black Manta and Aquaman, which does leave some interesting points to think about possibilities in the future. And I also thought he was great in this too, even before we even see any kind of crazy over the top suit. Just him as I've never seen this actor before in really anything, I don't think. But I thought he did a great job. He seemed to be very menacing. Seemed like he held a lot of anger pretty much every scene, which is funny at some points. And I think he served the purpose well. And then when you see him square down or square up with Aquaman, and they're fighting each other with the dad in the background, who, as a very smart move, decided to bring a fucking rocket launcher onto a submarine and decides to
It
just
wasn't a
blow
rocket launcher, genius. It was a grenade launcher.
grenade
Yes,
launcher.
I agree. And it's still the same level of stupidity.
He decided to bring a grenade launcher on the fucking sub and blow Aquaman away, which is a pretty funny thing to see, I think.
Now, how are you going to jump to that and forget permission to come aboard?
Oh, come on. I mean, I was kind of hoping you wouldn't talk about that. Well,
No, we're going to fucking talk about it because it's bad. I don't even know whose idea it was to do that.
well, that's one of the things that I was talking about when I said a crazy level of poses with ridiculous feels to the camera. He comes down on the ship. He's on his all fours doing a superhero landing, stands up, the camera's going behind him into his face.
Well, not only that, but not only that part was not only cringe, but remember the part where he gets hit by the guy, and of course it doesn't do anything to him, so he makes that weird, creepy, sexual predator smile. And yeah, and it zooms in on his face.
And he does like
It's
this
so
weird
dumb.
like predator head turn, and not like an alien predator, like a creepy predator head
Yeah, like a
turn.
sexual predator kind of feel to it. Like he just looks at him like, yeah, uh-huh. Like this is so awkward. But yeah, I didn't want to skip over that because it's just too funny. But yeah, um, Black Mana's daddy ends up shooting him with a grenade launcher. He's all shocked when he gets up, and what happens? He shoots it. Oh yeah, he throws the fucking pole at him. He throws a metal pole at him, and he shoots it again. Like what the fuck? Like didn't you not see like how it had little to no effect on him the first time, and you shot it again? Like why?
It didn't work the first time, but somehow it was going to work this time. God damn it! I don't know how, but yeah.
Yeah, and then Black Manta pleads to him like, "Hey, help my dad, please." And he's just like, "Hey, man, you kill innocent people, so I'm not gonna help. I'm sorry." And he just bounces. But I will say that like all jokes aside, I do think that scene was actually pretty good because like you could really tell that like he really so desperately wanted to save his dad, but like his dad was just like, "Look, I'm done for. Like you need to get out of here. I'm gonna kill us both." And I always think that "damn you" line is pretty funny, but
Damn
like I mean,
you!
damn you. But looking at it in hindsight, I do think it is a pretty good scene. I don't think it's like really cringe at all, if that makes sense.
I mean, the only thing that's kind of stupid to me is again the aspect of bringing that kind of weapon aboard a submarine. But
Yeah,
throwing that logic to the side, I think it's a good way to set up the motivation as to why he hates Aquaman. It's simple enough. He already wanted to kill him from the start just because of his position, but now this adds a whole nother level where the rest of the movie he's not really in it for any other prize. He's just out for blood, and I do buy that. So there's definitely that it adds.
yeah. It definitely does set up a nice motivation factor instead of just throwing something in there for convenience. So I will agree with you on that. But yeah, you fast forward. They take what does he do? He takes those hostages, right? He takes them back to Norway or wherever the fuck it is they're from, and he has beers. He has beers with his dad, and then he hangs out with the bikers, which was like pretty stupid. Um,
Not the best scene, but yeah, whatever.
definitely not. But then you get Patrick Wilson, who's so desperately trying to be Ocean Master. He talks to the weird graphics of Dolph Lundgren's hair underwater. And he's, trying to convince him, like, hey, we need to go to war with the surface people. And, like, everyone's just looking at him like, dude, like, what the fuck is your problem with the surface people?
Why are you
what is
trying to
the
wage war
issue?
with them every fucking month? Like, what the hell's the
Yeah,
problem
like,
with
that's all this
you?
dude wants to fucking do is just, like, wage war on the earth. And I'm just like, dude, like, what the hell is your problem? Like,
He's just got a bone to
and
pick with
so
them, yeah.
he's just got a hard on for war. And all of a sudden, like you see this random sub in the back, and he hops on this mythical underwater sea beast that he has the whole movie, and he takes his trident, and as he screams like he does in every other part of the movie, he breaks the submarine's propeller, and that gives him, I guess, the last and final push that he needs to become Ocean Master, or at least start waging the war on the surface level.
Yeah, that's it, and that becomes his excuse, and you don't find that out till later. You see him taking out this enemy submarine in a very epic way, I might add. I love how he just skids across it, piercing it with his trident, and he just smacks the fucking propeller.
He's like,
So, something I love about this movie, man, is like how the action is. It's so into it. Every moment just seems like it's so intense, and I really dig the movie for that. So that ends up happening. They say, "Hey, this is a reason why we need to do this now." Cut to, I believe, next, and like, correct me if I'm wrong. We start getting a scene of a giant ass fucking tsunami headed towards where Aquaman lives, and he happens to be driving down with his dad and gets caught up in the middle of it. Right?
yeah. Before you are correct, but before that, we have this awkward, weird exchange between Miss I like to take dumps on beds and
Yes, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But like, I just thought that whole scene, I felt like that scene was really forced because number one, he doesn't give a shit about Atlantis, but like, yeah, she comes out of the water. She doesn't even have like a conspicuous disguise on. She's
Yeah.
all dressed up in her Atlantis, outfit. And she's like, hey, we need you. We need you, Arthur. And it's just like that weird, awkward, like interaction that he always has and has always struggled with the entire time.
Yeah.
And then, but I just feel like that whole scene could have been just done without, like I feel like she could have showed up in time, like, after the tsunami hit him and his dad in his truck. And I feel like it still would have had the same impact
Yes.
of them
Yes.
like meeting together.
Like, just imagine if that whole part outside of the bar was cut, right? And then it just actually ends up happening where his dad gets messed up by the tsunami. He's about to drown, and she ends up coming through the water and revives him that way. From there, she starts giving away all that exposition that we were getting outside of the bar, but now it has a little bit more weight to it because she just revived him, and he might be a little bit more inclined to listen. Not that he should say yes right away. He can still be hesitant and resistant, but I just think that would have added a lot more and also saved some time too. Because I just got to say, this movie's long. Not that all the pacing is shit or it's too long, but it definitely wouldn't be too bad to sacrifice a few scenes here or there, if you know what I mean.
No, I definitely agree. And that's why I think that whole scene was silly because I'm just like, well, what the fuck was the point of him talking to her? Like that whole scene just could have just been done without. I just thought the whole scene was just silly.
And granted, he does mention how he feels about his mom and Atlantis and what they did to her, but that also I feel could have been explained in multiple
It could have
parts
been
of the
done in the
movie.
same scene.
Yeah, yeah,
It could have been done
absolutely.
in the same scene.
And
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I think right after that, I think that's when he realizes like, okay, I got to go to Atlantis, and I think there's like, of course, there's some like corny dialogue where she says, "Oh, you smell underwater," and then he smells himself, and he's like, "Ugh." And,
oh
and
god,
so they take. Hey, you know me, man. I'm gonna
the
point out every
jokes
cringe moment
suck,
in this
man.
fucking movie,
The
man.
jokes suck. You really
The
want to go
jokes
over every
fucking miss.
single one?
Yeah, the jokes fucking miss, bro, and everyone needs to realize that. Um, so anyway, they show up at Atlantis, which keep in mind, this is his first time seeing Atlantis, but in Justice League, the mother box was so conveniently placed right by, I guess the sea in Norway. I always thought that was like really stupid. Like again, like you said, there's obvious retcons in these movies now, but
A few retcons, and I don't want to go into it too much, but something else that I've noticed as well, and I'm sure this can be explained away, and somebody will find a way to explain it away, but he totally feels different about his mom in Justice League. In this movie, he's really upset by the fact that he hears his mom, what happened to his mom and how Atlantis pretty much got rid of her. But in Justice League, when you hear him talking to Mira then, he actually sounds kind of like resentful to his mom. He's like, oh, she just gave me away. Like I was nothing. I didn't mean anything to her. Like he didn't like her. And in this one, they decided to like change that angle up, and it doesn't bother me, but just little things here and there, I feel like they did kind of change because maybe James Wan or whoever else wrote was like, let's just go this
you
way.
know, that's actually a really fucking good point. Like I think you were telling me about that earlier, and I mean it's not that I forgot, but like now that we're talking about it, the floodgates are coming in, and you're right. Like he was so dismissive about his mom in Justice League, and then all of a sudden, he's like, my mom, Atlanta sucks because they treat my mom like shit, and to me that just worked way better for the movie.
Yeah, it did. I think so too. And you could just tell there was a different attitude. This one, he hates, not doesn't, I don't know if I say hate, but he just really doesn't like Atlantis. And in the last one, he just seemed more upset about his mom giving him away. Like he was talking about it like he was upset about it. So just a little retcon, but for the better. I mean, maybe James Wan thought it would be better, and I have to agree. I think this is a better angle to go with. And, that was just a little bit of a segue, but I thought that'd be important to point out. There's a few other things, but I'll try to bring them up when we get to it.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, they end up showing up to Atlantis. I feel like we can kind of just breeze over this, but
Yeah, not a whole lot here.
Willem Dafoe. Yeah, Willem Dafoe plays Volko, which is his mentor, and they basically just explain why they need him, and he's the true heir because he's the firstborn, and he's supposed to get the trident, and and the Atlantean PD shows up and pretty much kicks his ass, and they end up capturing him, and he ends up trash talking the Orm, and which we find out, of course, is his half brother. So right after Atlanta gets, forced to go back to Atlantis. She has a kid with the actual king, but they don't know anything about Arthur being born. At least I guess until later. I don't
Later, I
know.
think they just found it out later, and that's why they threw her under the trench.
Yeah, they threw her in the trench. So yeah, and then basically get to the gladiator arena. But
No, but
before we
before we
touch
get there,
base,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think you and I are about to talk about the same thing. Before the gladiator arena part starts, there's this flashback.
Yes. So
there's this there's this flashback that Jason Momoa has, and basically it's like this dweeby little kid, right? And I mean, he's not a little kid; he's like a teenager, and he has like this opinion about his mom. He has like this rebel attitude about everything that's going on. He's like, "Oh, why don't you take me to Atlantis? I want to see Atlantis. Why am I still over here?" And it's just so funny to me because like the whole scene is just like pan out like shots, and they zoom in on
it
people.
is, dude.
Like,
Yes, that's the whole scene. It's a lot of wide pan out shots and then zooming in on people's faces.
like, dude, the funniest part to me, besides the fact of that teenager shitty acting, but the funny part to me is when they pan out on Willem Dafoe and he's just in the frame by himself. He's like, Arthur, your mother loved you very much. I don't know why that fucking shot is so funny to me.
It's fucking funny, dude, because like, he's over here doing his lessons and then he's like, every time I complete a new one, you make up another one. When am I gonna meet my mom? Does she not love me? And at that point, I knew in the theater, I'm like, man, I'm having a hard time keeping it together. And it's not the fact that he's a terrible cast, because a lot of people are like, why did they pick him? I know why they picked him, because he does look like Jason Momoa. In my opinion, he actually does.
Oh, the delivery is just horrible.
He looks like him. It's his acting. I'm sorry. I feel bad for this guy. It might have been maybe just a bad take or direction, but man, his direction and acting was so fucking dog shit. And it didn't make anything believable at all. They play like really sad music in the background, and it just doesn't help.
He basically pulled a fucking George Lucas, like with the direction of like how he wanted to execute, like talking like that,
Just talk like you're really sad. Does she not love me? And then later,
talk like you're about to cry. Okay.
you mean they killed her because she had me?
Because she had me. Arthur, your mother loved you very much. It pans out on him. Oh my god!
I just gotta say, there are those scenes, and I'm not gonna lie, those do take me out of the movie. Again, not nearly enough to make me go like, "Oh, this is shit," but it definitely needs to be mentioned because it is a blister on this film. I would say that they just kind of, as soon as those scenes come, I'm like, "Oh, here we go."
Oh yeah, it's definitely something that takes you out of it completely. I don't know, whoever that guy is needs to get a better agent or like maybe like an acting coach, because I mean, again, we don't know whose fault it was. It could have been James Wan. Maybe he's just like, yeah, just say that and we'll move on, because maybe he's just not used to working with younger guys. I don't know, but like it's definitely not a good scene.
I mean, we weren't there.
I know why they did it.
Oh wait, yeah, I mean, we're not there. We're not claiming to be there. It could be a number of people's fault. Whoever cleared it carries some of the blame. But I just think it's important to be mentioned. I don't think we're in the minority here. A lot of people point that out too. And I did want to ask you really quick before we continue the Coliseum fight here. I was so happy to see Willem Dafoe here. I just love seeing him in everything. And when I saw him playing this character out,
yeah, he's the most hung guy in Hollywood.
Legend has it he's the most hung guy in Hollywood.
Legend has it this dude is swinging past the knees. What was that one movie that he was in? He's got Schmeat. What's that one movie that he was in, like in the 80s, where apparently they couldn't edit something because his dick was so big?
It was actually it was actually early 2000s. It was Antichrist by Lars von Trier.
What was the issue that they had? Because I don't remember what it was like verbatim, but it had something to do with that.
There's some stuff that happens to him. I don't want to spoil that movie because I do think you should watch it eventually, but there's some violent stuff that happens to him in the movie for certain reasons. and some stuff happens to his junk. And they were gonna have it to play for like when they wanted him to be naked while this is happening, of course. But apparently, like Lars was saying, that he wanted this character to seem kind of like a weak person because he's a weak character in the movie.
Legend has it.
I mean, this movie's legendary. His schlong is legendary. So apparently, he wanted this person to look weak because he was a weak character in the movie, and he was saying that because his dick was so massive, he actually they actually had to use special effects to give him a smaller one.
To make it look smaller. Yeah. Can you imagine just being that blessed that like you're a movie star? He's in the wrong profession. This dude should have been porn.
I'd watch him.
Can you imagine like being an actor and it's just like, Willem, can you get naked, please? And he's like, the fuck is like he takes his dick out. The fuck is this?
Yo,
this is too big.
How's that?
What is this? He's just like a humble guy about it. He's like, yeah, I know. Like, what can we do about it?
What can we do about it?
And he tells him, he's like, we're gonna have to edit this, Willem. What do you mean? Like, we can't do anything about this. What do you want us to do about it? Let's just like make this whole episode about a Willem Dafoe meat discussion.
Yeah, I'll just title it Willem Dafoe Schmeat.
Schmeat discussion. But no, we digress. We're gonna go ahead and move on. But yes, it was nice to see Willem Dafoe in the movie. I love him in Spider-Man. I know he's done quite a few other movies in the past, but you know, he's definitely an enjoyable dude to see on screen.
Yeah, man, he's just a great actor all around. Love seeing him. I just wanted to point that out because I love the guy. But we'll go ahead and move on into the fight here, and I'll let you start off.
Well, I mean, basically, like, you know, there's this dialogue between Orm and Arthur, and it's like, hey, like, why didn't what do they talk about? They basically just say like, hey, man, like, why didn't you? I can't remember who said what, but basically, I think Arthur was kind of more along the lines of like, you know, I always wanted to meet you. I heard that I had a brother, but you know, like, you never wanted to meet me. Like, the fuck's up with that? And then, you know, Orm has this complex about Arthur because their mom got sent to the trench because of him. So that's why he's not the biggest fan of Arthur because you know, his mom's not around because of him.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few things that happen, but that's basically the main point. There is they talk about how they both feel about their perspectives, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of find it touching when Arthur does talk about how he's like, I always wanted to meet you and let you know you're not alone. You know, because you can just imagine, like, at that point when he just hears that he has a brother, he doesn't know that he fucking hates him or anything like that. And then he later tells him, he's like, you know, I just found out you're a fucking dick. And yeah, just like you said, Orm he shares his perspective that he's the reason why their mom ended up getting killed. So, but he tells him at the end, he's like, I really don't even want to kill you. If you just want to leave, you have to leave, but you have to tell me you're not coming back. And because he's not going to back down from that, there begins the fight. And I do want to add, I think this fight is awesome. I think the special effects are great. It's a very over-the-top gladiator underwater fight. It feels like a video game at times. Like, Jesus Christ, man, I did not expect this in an Aquaman movie.
Yeah, you know, one thing I will say is that the fighting with the water and stuff like looked very fluent. You know, no pun intended, but it definitely looked like everything was pretty cohesive with each other the entire time they were fighting. And I don't believe that any of the graphics really slacked at all. Not that I'm a graphic whore or anything like that. But you can really just obviously tell like when a movie is like struggling to kind of keep the graphics there, and then other parts where it looks great, and then other times it struggles. So I mean, the whole time it was pretty consistent. But yeah, you know, Mara has this realization that, you know, hey, I need to go help Arthur because he's about to get his ass beat. You know, Orm ends up breaking his trident, and then she ends up showing up and slamming his ass into the ground, so that way they can escape. So, I mean, you basically, I mean, again, there's not really much else to say about that part.
Not a whole lot, except I do want to add before I forget, I love how Orm breaks his trident, how he has to swing 3 times and yells, "Ah!" every single time. Oh man, it's so funny. Like, I love it.
And then once he wins,
and then it comes to Arthur, and he looks like so defeated with the broken parts in his hand.
Yeah, he holds on to it. You got to feel bad for him at that point because that was his mom's trident.
Yeah,
What a dick.
it's sad. I just wanted to say that. And something else I wanted to ask you is, how do you feel, at least at this point, so far about Patrick Wilson as Orm?
Oh, I mean, I love him. Like I said, I think him and Willem Dafoe have the best acting chops throughout the whole movie. Even though he yells obnoxiously, I mean, that's, who his
He's
character
supposed to
is.
be
He's a
like that,
very
yeah.
gung ho Atlantean kind of dude who gets off to fighting and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's definitely not, it's definitely not believable. If that makes
Well, he's
sense.
supposed to be that. He just
Um,
strikes me as, like, for example, like a cartoon character who's like a warrior who's all about fighting and leading his people and stuff like that. And it translates to live action, and it's funny at times, but I admire how committed he is to it. All the yelling and screams of valor. It's great. I love it.
so one thing I will say is that in the comics, he's actually a brunette. He's actually does not have white hair, and him and Arthur, I will say, have somewhat of a better relationship. There's this arc in the Aquaman run from 2011 to 2016. I'm looking at it right now because, obviously I'm not a database full of comics, but it's the Volume 3 Throne of Atlantis, where basically it follows this entire storyline from the movie. It's like heavily kind of outlined from that. But basically, him and Arthur have a little bit more of a better relationship in the comic. Like, I don't think that there's as much animosity as there is in the movie. I think obviously they did that for entertainment purposes, but basically the whole war for the surface level is orchestrated by Volko in the
Oh,
comics.
really?
It's not something that's yeah. So basically, Orm is still a dick, but like Volko is the one that was like kind of like being the puppeteer behind all of it.
Interesting.
And so yeah, that's what happens in the comic, but obviously that's not the case in this movie. I just wanted to share that fact. But you fast forward and then you hear Pitbull, and
Oh,
they
God.
go to the desert.
I hate that
Uh,
rendition of fucking Africa.
so
I do
fucking
not like that,
trash,
but go on.
so trash. And the whole Africa scene. There's definitely quite some quirkiness in there. Like there's this I don't remember the exact lines. I've honestly flushed it from my memory, but there's like this weird line that they have with each other. They have like this weird, corny, quirky banter back and forth with each other, which is Aquaman and Mera. And then all of a sudden they go down there and they get sucked into a hole and they see, Atlan's throne. And I think that at that point, that's when they try to figure out, like, okay, we got to go and find the trident so we can figure out how to get you to reclaim the throne of Atlantis. I mean, I understand why they added it in the movie, but again, it's one of those like pointless scenes that didn't really do much for me.
I don't like this scene when I watch this movie. I like this movie, but
I don't
whenever it
either.
comes to the desert part, I sort of check out a little bit, and the reason why is because it does seem like it's just a point to get a MacGuffin to go to the next part of the story. When I feel like they could have just went to the next part of the story, and I feel like they only have this desert scene in this movie, dude, is because they want to try to build a little bit of a relationship with Mara and Arthur. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
banter with them. There's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of flirting. And to me, dude, it doesn't work. That's one of the weak parts of this movie to me is I don't think that Mara and Arthur have chemistry at all. This movie is pretending that they do the whole time through, but I personally don't see it at all. And I think a lot of that has to do with Amber Heard. I don't think that she's good in this movie. And one of the
She's not the greatest actress.
yeah,
I can't lie about that. Like, I definitely do think that a lot of her delivery in this movie is not good at
and she's
all.
been good in other movies. I don't think that she's a terrible actress, but in this movie, ever since I saw it the first time, I always thought that she was a very weak actress in this movie. I just think that she didn't really do the best job. But the reason why I didn't like that scene is because it's like all meant to build that, and me personally, I don't buy that they actually feel chemistry for each other. So I'm just very excited for them to get to fucking Italy and just move on with that, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And, right before the Italy part happens, Orm shows up and, he gives him some Atlantean technology because, Arthur's skin is pretty much impenetrable by, bullets and, normal blades. So he gives him Atlantean silver and technology and, Black Man is making his own suit and stuff like that. So that was cool to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, you fast forward to Italy. And one other thing that you did mention to me when this movie came out was that like every action scene that happens always starts with a random
To
quote.
the side, yes.
Yeah, from the side, because that's exactly what happens. Is like They figure out where the trident is at. They know in what direction it is they need to go, and all of a sudden, boom, Black Manta shows up and a bunch of like Atlantean people. And I thought that this scene was actually pretty cool because like not only did what's the word I'm looking for? It was more of like an even playing field between Manta and Aquaman. Like there wasn't really any kind of like extreme advantages that one kind of had over the
Right.
other.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Something that I thought was kind of cool too is how we see Mera actually turn wine into these red spikes that she shoots into these soldiers. And we watched this animated version of Aquaman. It's kind of like the same story, but it's in like the animated Justice League lore. It's going into those movies, and she actually does like the same shit, but with different kinds of liquid. I think it was, I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been blood, something crazy like that. But she formed like spikes out of that and like pierced other soldiers. I thought that was cool because it was like the exact same thing that happened in this movie. So just kind of cool things I like about this fight. It's very enjoyable, but I know you like the whole aspect about the advantages over another, which there is really none in this.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Mera, I mean, she definitely does have like some pretty decent powers. There's this something that happens in that comic the same year and run where I think there's like some kind of like abusive husband or like some kind of standoff with the police that happens with some kind of abusive husband. And what she does is that she actually possesses the ability, like if you have water in you, she can manipulate that water. And like what she did to the abusive husband is that she took all the water out of his body and like basically made him like on the verge of death because he had no water in his body, and like she gave it back to him and the cops like arrested him. Something like that happened from what I remember. But it was like crazy because I was like, damn, like she can really do all that.
Psycho. I mean, she craps on beds, man. What else do you think she can do?
Yeah, beats up poor Johnny Depp.
Tries to cut off his fingers while he's sleeping. Sorry, what?
God. Uh, but yeah, that's what she does in that fight. And yeah, Aquaman does get his ass kicked quite a bit. He gets, he gets pretty much Cyclops the entire time. Um, I will say, like, the cool part was when he does swing around that chain and ball, and like he fucks himself up like super bad by blowing it up in his face. And like I just remember like seeing it in the theaters where like the dude just tumbles down the hill and like it's like doof, doof. You just see him. Like,
I love that angle that they
shit
choose. He's just getting so messed up going down, hitting all these rocks. It's like, oh my god.
Oh, it's great. Like you almost kind of think he's dead, but you know he's not dead. But it's like, damn, like he got fucked up.
Yeah, you know he's down for the count at least.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden Aquaman passes out. Well, what would you say? Which fight scene did you like better? Would you say that you liked that Italy fight scene, or would you like the Orm Coliseum scene more?
Uh, that's a tough one. I actually like them both a lot.
But if you had to pick just one,
If I had to pick just one,
I would honestly pick the Italy fight because I think I like Black Manta more as a villain.
Barely, yes. I was gonna say I was gonna have to lean towards the Italy fight, and reason why is because as much as I like Orm, a lot of that fight is really more of the same as when it comes to battle styles and how they're trying to take each other out. Black Manta is very different from Aquaman, and Aquaman obviously doesn't fight by trying to shoot devastating lasers like he does. He doesn't fly around like he does. So I think there's a lot of different variables in that fight that make it more entertaining to watch. So yeah, I'd have to give the Italy fight that one.
Yeah, not only that, but Black Manta is human at the end of the day, and he still possesses Atlantean strength and endurance. So he definitely has his work cut out for him, but he's definitely dangerous. So he knows his
Imagine
shit.
Black Manta versus like Iron Man from the first movie.
Hmm.
That'd be kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, but all Iron Man would do is fly higher and higher until Black Manta froze up
True. Yeah.
and do that. Um, but the next part of the movie, he wakes up, and this is honestly kind of like a forgettable part for me, but I don't. Honestly, like, don't remember like what is said between him and Mara on the boat. From what I remember, it's like I think he talks about how. Oh, that's right. He actually feels bad about letting his father die. So at this point in the movie, this is where that character development comes in because at the beginning of the movie, he's a rebel. He doesn't care about stuff. he indirectly doesn't really care about things. But as time goes on, and specifically at this part, he says something along the lines of like, like I should have helped his dad, like, I should have helped him because, now he's doing this. And, it was something along those lines where he realized that he should have taken accountability to help his father rather than let him die.
Yeah, that's a good point. He kind of comes a little bit to light because he's always been resistant the whole movie, so he's starting to finally see if he can be on board with some of this stuff, and he's trying to talk to her how he doesn't feel like he's meant for this role, and a lot of the whole movie, and I don't think it's the strongest point. It's very how do I say it? Like it's so obvious and in your face of like, oh, this is what he's thinking now. This is what he's thinking now. Like, I think we get it at this point, but it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter because it doesn't last too long before we get to this trench scene where the whole movie takes a shift and into some other movies that he's directed as a horror director. First and foremost, at least with his first movies, this just becomes like a horror movie for a bit, which I thought was kind of cool. I was wondering what you thought.
I thought it was all right. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the Trench. I've never really been like a big fan of like menacing things in comics where it's like horde type level threats. I've always
Yeah,
kind of thought that they were boring because it's all like a one hive mind type of thing, and they all follow the same motive, and it's always like, oh, we're gonna get outnumbered because there's so many of them. I thought the whole action scene was cool between them. I mean, I thought it was a pretty cool and realistic approach that they had because it's like, oh man, like we can keep fighting, but we're eventually just gonna get outnumbered anyway. So fuck it, like we gotta go.
might as well just go. Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool aspect behind it. Um, Interestingly enough, I mean, the Trench is actually a new addition to DC, which I thought was kind of cool. Upon again after watching the movie and kind of digging deep into the comics, that same New 52 run, that's when they actually added the Trench in to like I guess the DC canon.
Oh,
Jeff
really?
Johns put that in there too. Yeah, that's what the whole first volume is about is the Trench, and then the second volume is about, or it's called The Others, where basically I think Aquaman knows a bunch of like other like metahumans and stuff, which I didn't really care for. But that might be something that they explore later on in this universe. Who knows?
Well, I
Um,
mean, they already confirmed how they're making a movie about the trench, right? I know you were kind of lukewarm
yeah,
about that.
yeah, I don't really care for that. But as far as like the others go, I don't know if that'll play a part in later movies because they are, individuals that he does know. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about a Trench movie?
Um, I just don't really know where they would go from there. To me, the trench isn't really a whole lot to go off of. It's more just like it's something to move the plot along or to be an obstacle. I don't really see it having that much depth, pun intended, to really make anything worthwhile of a film. If anything, I think something around the trench would be a film, but I mean, maybe they're just doing that and they're just naming it the trench. Who knows? They do shit like that. I just don't really know what to expect, to be honest. If we get more information on what it is, I'll probably have an idea of how I feel.
Fair enough. I mean, from what I know, and I'm just going to read this excerpt here. It says the Trench are a race of vicious, cannibalistic, ocean-dwelling creatures that rose from their domain beneath the ocean floor in search of food and devour anything that's in their way. Um, from what I remember, let me just see here. I'm trying to read over stuff, but it's not really giving me much on fucking Wikipedia. But from what I remember, I think they were supposed to be Atlanteans from like, the golden age. I don't even know like the proper age that I'm looking for, but they're supposed to be Atlanteans, and I
Hmm.
guess they were, I guess, encased in, I guess, something for like years upon years. I guess it's like a descent version of like
Okay.
Atlanteans, I guess, is what they're supposed to be, from what I remember. I could be wrong though, so the audience, please don't take me as 100% correct. I could be most definitely wrong right now, but
Just looking into
basically,
stuff.
yeah. But basically, from what I remember reading, a couple years ago back, that's kind of how they are, and they mutated into those beings, I guess.
Huh. Interesting. I remember hearing something about how they weren't always like that, and that's just like a
Yeah,
form.
yeah,
So,
exactly. So I don't know. I could be wrong, but we'll see. But yes, they basically fight through the trench, and then they end up in this. I don't know, what do you call it? Like a I guess like a whirlpool
Well, it's
that
almost like a core deep inside the earth
the
in a
Earth,
way.
yeah, because there's dinosaurs.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of reminds me of this really bad movie, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Center of the Earth.
It's like the same thing. There's like dinosaurs in there. It's fucking what's his name?
Brennan. So wasn't there two movies? I think it's like Brendan Fraser and The Rock. Each did like
Yeah,
each of
yeah,
them did like one, and like they were both bad.
yeah. First one was with Brendan Fraser, and then The Rock, and then there was no more. But yeah, it reminded me of that. It was like the same concept basically. But
Yeah. So they journey to the center of the Earth now, and then basically he meets his mom. He finds out after all these years his mother's still alive, and she's been chilling at the core of the Earth. And that basically it gets to them saying, hey, well, the trident's here, let's go get it, but it's been guarded by a leviathan, which I guess I wouldn't even go as far as to say it's a kraken or anything like that, but it's just it's called a karathan, I guess is what it's
Marathon?
called.
Okay, yeah. Some guardian of the trident, right?
Yes, which is basically the guardian of the trident. So it's Atlan's last resting place because that's where he went after he became depressed, and I guess he died there. And I guess that was his final wish to the carrot, the whatever the fuck it is, to guard his trident and make sure that anybody who was not worthy enough to get it would be killed by it. The funny thing, right?
They don't even get brushed away; they have to be killed.
Yeah, they can't even be told to get fuck off. They had to fucking die. Um, the funny thing I want to point out, and you're probably gonna hate me for it, before he goes and gets the trident, is like there's like this again. There's like that weird pan out shot zoom of him talking to his mom, and there's like this weird like upbeat music that you hear as he's walking towards the waterfall.
Yes.
I always laugh every time I see that part.
That part I don't hate as much actually. I kind of like it because it's like so corny in a good way, and it's like what you would expect out of something like a superhero movie where he's about to get that part and he's about to feel that moment. So yeah, that part I don't hate as much, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, and then he goes and he squares up with the Leviathan. He gets his ass beat, and the Leviathan basically gives him an intermission of beating his ass because he finally talks to it, and she's like, "Whoa, you talk to me? Only Atlan can talk to me. That must mean you're worthy of the trident." So she lets him grab it. He lets out a very courageous, drunken yell. He's like, "Yeah!" And then like I'm not even gonna fucking lie, but like I cheesed my ass off. Not because I thought it was corny, but I thought the fucking costume looked so fucking G when he came out of that waterfall. He
It
had
is, man. Yeah, he owns that shit.
like, oh man, it's so good. Like he's got the orange and the green on, and it's not even like cheap spandex looking shit. You can see the scales and the
Yeah, they got
armor.
scales on that shit, dude. That
Like,
costume
oh
was
my
apparently a
god,
nightmare to make, and I give them
really?
all the praise. Yeah, because they said with scales like that, it's so hard to make it so he can move his arms up and down, and that was like one of the biggest challenges was doing that. But James Wan insisted that he wanted to keep that look, and they fucking did it. So I give him props.
I'm so well. That's the thing is that they did it for Orm's armor too, but I think a lot more of Orm's stuff was computer generated.
I think so too. Yeah.
And that's why. But that's the thing is like you can't have Orm looking one way and then have Aquaman look another. Like that would just look really stupid. But no, man, like that part was so fucking awesome. Like I literally cheesed when I saw him come out of that waterfall.
He like slams his trident to the ground.
It's so badass, man. Like it's comic book accurate, man. Like just the fact that the orange and green just looked like it does in the comics, like it's great. It's way better than that shitty ass costume that Zack Snyder gave him in Justice League.
Yeah.
I mean, I get he wasn't like King of Atlantis quite yet, so obviously, he's not gonna look like that. But I was never been a fan of that weird, funky green that he was in before.
They tried to make it a mix of yellow and green in that, and I don't like that one either. I never liked that one. It looks too odd.
It looks like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
Stupid?
like dirty.
I'm just kidding.
It looks like the paint that Cartman was trying to make at Butter's house. where like he was mixing like the shit together. You remember that episode? And he's like, I got this color, I got this shade. that's what the that's what his old suit reminded me of. Is like that weird like poop thing that Cartman was doing in that one episode because it's like a weird brown, green, yellow type of look and or what? I mean, maybe I'm over exaggerating. I think it was like a olive green and like gray or something like that.
Yeah,
It just didn't really look good at all.
the point was trying to find a way to mix the yellow and green because I feel like Zack Snyder was trying to do like he was looking at the original Aquaman costume and he's like, this is just too old, too dumb, it wouldn't work. So he tried to do like a new version of it, and I think that sucks. I love how James Wan just went back and Kevin Smith actually said in his review of this movie that he was talking with James Wan and he told him he's like, wow, you actually kept like the OG Aquaman suit, and he told him he's like, I just didn't think there was a reason to change it. I thought it was fine, and I actually admire that he did that because I thought it was fucking G when he came out with it too. So
Dude,
that's a
me
win.
too. Like, and it just adds to the colors of the movie too. Like, it's not. I mean, again, it's comic book accurate. Like, I mean, again, comic book accuracy with panels and stuff does not equate to comic book accuracy by the acting of these characters, but it just adds so much more to the movie when it is.
I agree. Yeah, you know, instead of just like finding a way to make it look cooler or darker, and I'm trying to like quote these. They just did what it was, and it works. So this fortunately leads to the end of this movie, which is well due now by this point, and he's gonna confront Orm and his his army.
Well,
What?
one thing that I want to say that's funny is like the whole time Aquaman's going on this journey, like Orm's just being a fucking dick, like making people afraid of him, and it's just like remember he punked Dijon Mustard, the green dude. I don't know his name is Digimin something, but I call
Dijon
him Dijon
mustard.
Mustard.
Yeah, yeah.
I always call him Dijon Mustard every time I see him, but he ends up killing him,
And
and
he's like
then
going for his
like
daughter or son or whatever. He's like, "You're the heir to the throne."
you're heir to the throne. Give me your approval. And then he goes and punks that hermit crab. Remember, he cuts off that dude's hand. He's like, damn you. I don't even remember what he says, but it was so funny because he's just like, fuck you, man.
Well, dude, what's so funny to me is like Orm's talking about how he needs to wage war with the land, and he's like, "I'm going to grab everybody else so they can help me wage war." But on the way to grab everybody else, I'm going to wage war against these brine people. And the thing is, like, I don't mind that, but dude, man, when you're watching this movie for the first time, at least. This fucking war comes out of butt fucking nowhere, man. Like, he just comes and they're all automatically, you see a cut to the other side and the brine people is like, come on, let's fight. Ah! And I'm like, where did this happen? Like, what's going on? If he can just wage war against these people, like, does he really need their help to wage war against the land like that? Holy shit. But anyways, yeah. So he was doing that, and it was great. Don't get me wrong, I love the ending, but it just kind of comes out of nowhere if you don't really know what's happening.
Yeah, it definitely comes like out of left field. And then while he's punking the little hermit midget crab guy, the fucking pretty much the Leviathan comes out of the water, and I will say that's like one of like my favorite shots too is like seeing him ride the Leviathan, and he's like yelling the entire time, and then he also does like his and basically what I don't know the technical term for it, but he does a sea call to everybody, so you see like the sonic like or those circular rays that he has,
I love the
and
music
like
that goes with
all
that.
oh yeah, the music's great too. The score is awesome. And then like, the trench comes up. And by the way, I'm not going to skip it because everybody needs to know about it. He has this talk with Mara after that whole scene. And then, and then they kiss and then there's like explosions in the back.
You see, you see carnage in the background, battleships getting destroyed. And it's like 360 panning to them kissing because that's
so
what's important.
bad. It was so forced and so bad. I'm just like, why are we getting this right now? It honestly took me out of that entire scene because I was hype. I'm like, oh yeah, he's calling all the fish.
Here we
He's
go.
calling
Here we go.
everybody to help him. He's riding the Leviathan, and then it just comes to like the screeching halt of having like a motivational pep talk between him and Mara, and it's like, I need to do this. I have to fight Orm, and then like they kiss, and it's just like that could be saved for later.
Like the movie could not
could've-
have pumped the brakes any harder at that point. Like,
dude, like I swear to God, man, like I'm watching the movie The Leviathan, I'm like, oh man, this pedal to the metal. The brake line is cut, and then all of a sudden the brakes get fixed mid movie, and it just is like, I have to screech on the brakes so fucking hard that like my children go sliding up to the front seat, like. Like that's how much of a screeching halt that movie took when they've decided to do that, and like it bothers me to this day because I'm just like it like why?
That could have been at the end, man. Like, come on, if you really had to do it.
Totally, man. So we fast forward. I know I say this a lot, so whatever. Ding me for it for every time I do. But we fast forward, and he's on his sea monster. Aquaman's on his seahorse, and then they basically fight. They get up to the land, and other thing too is that Willem Dafoe's been found out to be a traitor, and so he's basically getting his rocks off the entire time, watching Arthur wield his trident around. And I will say that like that last fight scene on the little carrier was actually pretty cool. I will say that there was like a couple parts where I was just like, why did he do that? Like how like he pushed him back and like he made like that weird like
Pose where he puts his hands to the sides. Yeah.
Well, like no, he makes like that weird arm motion to keep himself from like going into the fan.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, yeah, he's like holding himself. Yeah, okay. He's like looking at him.
I thought that was like super weird. I was like, okay, well, whatever. But like the rest of the fight was pretty cool. I thought it was funny how like he starts spinning the trident. Like this is obviously towards the end of the fight, but you start spinning the trident because that's that move that he showed him all those years ago. And Willem Dafoe has like this goofy ass smile on his
smiling. It's funny because like I get why he's smiling, but it reminds me of that terrible scene. And he's like, "Oh, the payoff! He's doing what I taught him."
It's just so funny how Willem Dafoe just makes that face. He's just like, "Yeah, do it, Arthur," like the entire time. And so, basically, he ends up shattering Orm's trident. Orm takes a fat ass L, and basically he takes his helmet off, and he's pleading him to kill him. And then all of a sudden, because they both have severe mommy issues, he sees Nicole Kidman come out of the water. He's like, "Mommy, mama."
Speaking of that,
he sees mommy.
Oh, sorry. Speaking of mom, dad, brother, I just need to interject really quick. This is kind of a fun fact here. So Arthur and Orm are elder and younger brothers, right? But in real life, Patrick Wilson, he's 5 years older than Jason Momoa. And not only that, Nicole Kidman, who's the mom, she's actually only 7 years older than Patrick Wilson. So she's like right at their same age, but yet they're somehow like they're her kids. Like it's just kind of funny to me.
What the hell? That's pretty funny. Damn, Nicole Kidman is 7 years older than Patrick Wilson. I thought he was like younger.
No, she's only 7 years older than him. So it's kind of funny that she's his mom. He's supposed to be the young one, but yet in real life he's older than Jason Momoa. So it's like, what the hell? I mean, it doesn't matter. I just thought it would be funny to point out.
No, that is pretty funny. I mean, it's the same thing when you look at Star Wars, and it's like, okay, well, Padme is like what 10 years older than Anakin.
Yeah, facts.
Like somebody's like barely 20 years old. Like, okay, she's like, so what was she like 15? Like, she had to be at least like 15. I think he was like what, like 8. Or 7.
Anakin and the Phantom Menace, he's supposed to be like 7 or 8.
Yeah, and she's like at least 15.
She's supposed to be like 13. She's supposed to be like 13, but 13? In real life, she was older.
I think she was like at least 15 in the movie. So that gives them like at least like anywhere between 5 to 7 years apart, which is like hilarious to me.
Cradle robber.
Yeah, essentially a cradle robber. But anyway, but yeah,
mommy issues. Sorry,
but no, I was just saying like Patrick Wilson sees Mama. Orm goes, mommy tries to grab try to suck on the mama milk. And, he makes peace with his mom and, everybody's all, happy and all that. I thought it was kind of cool that he added his own flair at the end. I don't know if it was something that Momoa requested or something that James Wan and him mutually agreed on. I mean, I thought it was kind of cool that he added his own Polynesian heritage to the end of it. I mean, if you really think about it, it's not very Aquaman-esque because Aquaman's obviously not Polynesian, but for Jason Momoa and for the movie, I definitely didn't mind it because I was just like, oh, okay, well, that's his own thing. I know that they're very family in culture, pride. What's what I'm looking for? Very prideful of their culture over there. So it wasn't something that ruined that scene for me.
Yeah, it's just something that he picked, and also going off of that too, just so you know, or anyone who's listening, Jason Momoa, he actually specifically requested
Django Fett.
Django
Yeah.
Fett. Yeah, he said that he said he was one of his idols as an actor because he was in this movie called We Are the Warriors. I haven't seen it, but I heard it was good, and I guess they were close to being the same nationality. So James Bond was like, "Yeah, he'll be your dad," and that ended up working out. So it's different for Aquaman for sure. I'm not gonna act like it's the same thing. That's one thing that's not comic accurate, but you really can let that pass when
Yeah,
everything
everything
else
else
just
is just
works for you.
fine. Exactly. But like, wasn't this is funniest part in the movie is like is like when they're marching Orm to prison, and then Arthur's like, "When you're ready, we'll talk." But it's like they never talk.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, no, they never talk. I think because the movie pretty much ends right after that,
yeah,
so I'm assuming that's like continued.
yeah. And then of course, what is it? Fucking Mara and him have like another cringe interaction towards the end, tying back to what you said.
She's just like, "Meet your new king,
Oh
Arthur,"
God, it's so
and
bad.
everybody's like, "Hail to the king!" And then it just ends with, I'm not gonna lie, it ends with a very like simple but awesome superhero shot where he's like monologuing who he is, King of the Sea, of the land. And then he like ends, he ends up shooting up, and then you see like a cool like shot of him,
That
being
part's actually
Aquaman. I
really
actually thought that
cool.
was quite cool. Yeah, I thought it was cool too.
But yeah, that's pretty much the end of Aquaman. If anything, I would rate the movie. I give it an 8 because there's things in the movie that's not enough for me to sit there and say, well, that's enough for me to peg it down. But the problems that I do have with it is the reason why it doesn't get a full 10 for me, or even a 9.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, absolutely. For me, at least on my scale, I am with you there. Just a little bit lower. I'd have to give it a 7 personally, only because the other things really do drag it down for me. And an 8 out of 10 is like very, very good with little things to complain about, basically. And there's a lot of silly elements to here. If I took those silly elements and I really focused on them and thought that it took everything down, this movie would be much lower. But the fact is, I enjoy the movie for what it is, and I think it was done intentionally. And I think it's just a genuinely fun watch. So yeah, solid 7 out of 10. I'm happy that I own it. I throw it on every now and then, and one of my favorite DC movies to put on.
Actually, I mean, if we're talking about the DC cinematic universe, that is my favorite movie out of all of them so far.
Oh yeah.
Well, if we're talking about this universe in particular, yeah. Everything else can go kick rocks. Um,
You mean better than The Dark Knight Rises? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
As well, not the Dark Knight Rises, the Dark Knight. That's blasphemy to everybody
Yeah,
else. But yeah, that wraps up Aquaman. We're gonna go right into Shazam right now. The Shazam, this discussion is actually gonna be very quick because, as you guys can tell, we thoroughly enjoyed Aquaman. There's quite a lot of that we had to say about it. Um, so yeah, I can just basically say that it looks like Shazam. What was it? It was directed by David Sandberg. I know you were telling me that he did a couple of Conjuring spin-offs, and then he also did Lights Out too.
Yes, that's right. David F. Sandberg. I actually like this guy a lot. He's done Lights Out. He actually started off as a YouTuber. He's actually still a YouTuber, which I was wanting to tell you about before, but I keep forgetting. Ever since before he started making movies and during, he does a lot of behind the scenes that he uploads for everyone to see. He does behind the scenes of Shazam. He first started off with this short movie called Lights Out, and it ended up getting a lot of traction. Warner Brothers took a chance on him and let him do a full length version of it, which was a Lights Out movie. I actually like that one. Not like the best scary movie I've ever
It's a
seen, but
good
it's a solid
concept.
movie.
It's pretty original,
Yeah,
I'll say. I mean, I don't from what I
it's
remember, I
original.
don't think it had a whole bunch of crazy jump scares, but it's not bad.
I like the concept a lot, and for such a short to make it, he was able to expand that out into a full length. I think he did a pretty decent job. Again, not the best thing ever, but I enjoyed it. So because of that, he ended up doing Annabelle Creation, and I like the Conjuring series. Going back to James Wan, I did not like Annabelle. The first Annabelle movie that came out was pretty dog shit from what I
Mhm.
remember. And I've only seen it twice. The first time I saw it was with actually, fun fact, my first date with my girlfriend, who is now actually my wife. It was our first date. We went to go see first Annabelle
Oh,
movie,
cute.
and then later I saw it. Yeah, and then later we ended up seeing it on an anniversary, and it did not hold up. So that movie was bad. He ended up taking care of a sequel called Annabelle Creation, where it linked that one in, and they went even further to see where the Annabelle doll came from. And I don't know if you've told me that you've seen that one, but I actually don't mind that one. I think it's really
I
good
have not seen
compared to.
any of the Conjuring movies, man. I think the
No?
only
Okay.
movie I've seen is Insidious. But that's it.
Well, that's not.
That's not it.
Oh, okay. So you haven't seen any of them. No, no, you haven't seen any Conjuring, so you've seen Insidious. Okay. So,
Yeah.
well, that's fair.
Are they all in the same
So
universe
he took.
though? I mean, not to be put on this tangent, but aren't they all in the same
Not
universe?
Insidious,
Not
no.
Insidious
Insidious is a James Wan universe, but that's completely different
or
from
Conjuring.
Conjuring.
Okay, I remember all that shit being somehow kind of connected, but not really. But okay,
No, well, the thing is, The Conjuring, those are based on real people, real ghost investigators who wrote like books and have like documentaries about them. And then, or The Conjuring's about that. And then Insidious are like make believe stuff that James Wan made up. So yeah,
gotcha.
but anyways, so he was doing Annabelle Creation, which if you look at the reviews for the first Annabelle, they're pretty bad, and then you see Annabelle Creation, they're actually decent. I think he's a talented guy, and the other reason why I like him is because he was also on this podcast that I listen to a lot called Sardonicast. It's these YouTube video makers, and he was on with them and just explaining how it works to work with a big studio and how you got to work with like different things that they require and how you got to explain certain things to them so they let you greenlight stuff. So he just seems like a really humble, down to earth dude. And he ended up getting lucky with Shazam. And this was his first one that's not actually a horror movie. So I was interested to see how he took care of a superhero movie. And for the most part, I think he did a pretty decent job. I like Shazam. I don't think it's the most outstandish movie from the DC universe. But for the most part, I think I did his job. I was expecting a little bit more from the trailers, I'd say overall, though.
Yes,
But I think you're feeling the same, right?
yes, exactly. And I do want to talk about its budget a little bit. It had a 80 to $100 million budget, and it made 366 mil. So I mean, they did profit a little bit from the movie, but not really a whole lot. I mean, this is the same month that what was it? I think Endgame had come out. Yeah, yeah, it came out. Endgame came out like much later, like towards the end of the month. But I ended up seeing this movie before you. Remember? Because my daughter was born 2 days. What was it? Yeah, I believe. She was born on the 13th, but I think the early screening for it was like I think a couple days after she was born, and it was through direct. It was a Fandango early screening access that they had, and I was able to see it. And I remember telling you that it was just okay. And I remember for the longest time that like you tried to see it in theaters, but I don't think you ever could or you ever did.
Yeah, so it was funny because I ended up buying tickets for that same early Fandango screening, and I was wanting to see it the same day as you. Some things happened with babysitting for the kid, and we could not go, and that money just went away. So that sucked. I guess I helped the opening weekend, and then later I was like, oh, well, we'll see it when it comes out this time, and the same thing happened. We were not able to go, so it took me a couple weeks to actually get around to see it. And when I did, I felt the same way. Maybe a little higher, I guess, just gauging it off the response. I think it's fine. I mean, it's very decent. I just, at the end of the day, was expecting a little bit more just because I was riding off the hype from Aquaman. I was starting to think that maybe, oh, DC's like, they're turning around a whole nother leaf, man. Like, this could be a whole
Yeah,
crazy epic version of Shazam. And it's not that. But at the same time, when I watched it, I have to say, I realized that it wasn't really going for that. Maybe a little bit of that was my expectation because rewatching this, a lot of this is very much a lighthearted comedy version of a superhero movie, you know?
no, and I agree, and I think that's the kind of issue that I had as well, is that I was riding off the coattails of Aquaman and kind of feeling like I was hoping I get kind of the same thing, but I mean, no, you're exactly right. I mean, and that's the thing is like, there's really no other way to really do this movie because it's about a kid who's, 14, 15, I think maybe even younger than that, gets powers from a wizard and he has to figure out how to use those powers to his advantage. And I mean, there's really no other way to kind of do it, which is kind of why I can appreciate the movie as much as I do because, like you said, it really takes like the true spirit of like who Shazam is as a person and as a superhero, and pretty much instills that throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, that's it. It's a very, I mean, you have to look at this as what it is. The source material is a kid who ends up getting these powers, and he says Shazam, and he turns into a godlike superhero. Just trying to make that work. You can imagine how goofy all of us would be with that kind of power at that age. And it definitely touches on that. I think one thing that this movie focuses on that I kind of like a little bit more the second time, not so much the first time, but checking it out again. The one of the biggest parts of this movie, I guess, if you could say that, would be the family. Him getting used to this aspect because you can see that from the beginning he never really understood or had a good bringing up when it comes to being connected with a family. You see early in the movie he was separated by his mom, which gets touched up on later, and he ends up being like a shithead kid and just gets thrown around from foster home to foster home, and he ends up landing on one that seems to be kind of decent, and he doesn't even want to do that because he's so focused on his mom.
Right.
And I was wondering what you think about the whole aspect of him trying to find his mom the whole time and kind of being a shithead about that.
Well, I don't read a whole lot of Shazam comics, so I honestly can't really say or really compare it to much of anything else because I don't know the source material besides the basic stuff. But I mean, it worked for the movie. That's really all that I have to say about it. Is that eventually, like once he has that epiphany later on, like, oh well, family isn't always someone that you're blood related to. Like I actually have a family in it, they're in danger. Which to me was kind of predictable, but it is. I mean, it goes along with the theme of the movie.
Yeah, definitely it does. That's a big part of it. And then on the opposite side here, we have the enemy who always grew up with a family, just not one that he particularly liked. We have Dr. Savannah
Right.
and Thaddeus Savannah, and we see the beginning of the movie. I actually forgot about
Mark
this for a second.
Strong, aka
Yeah.
Sinestro.
Sinestro, aka that bald dude from Kingsman. And he's in that car with his dad and his older brother when he's younger. Ends up being taken by this wizard to see if he's worthy of the
which is
Shazam
Dijon,
powers.
which is ironically Dijon Mustard again.
Are you serious? Is it?
Dude, look it up. It's Dijon Mustard, bro. He,
What the heck?
the black guy, the wizard, that's him,
How can he be multiple characters in the same universe?
dude.
Marvel doesn't even allow that.
Dude, it's not up for us to inquisite about that. Just look it up, man. It's him. Like,
Well,
I'm looking at the
interesting.
credit right here. But I mean, in your defense in that statement, he was playing a fish guy in Aquaman, so no one. I don't even think anybody really could tell that it was him, but it's definitely him and Shazam.
Interesting. All right. Well, regardless, again, Thaddeus decides or doesn't decide, but he proves that he's not really able to be pure of heart and falls towards the dark side, so to speak. And he ends up holding a grudge for that the whole movie.
Nigga,
And apparently, he never.
this ain't
What?
Star Wars. We're talking about
Hey, I'm just.
the seven deadly sins. Okay.
Yeah, I'm summarizing it. The seven deadly sins, obviously. Now, he ends up holding this grudge forever, apparently. He never lets this go. From a little kid, I was expecting them to actually die in that car wreck later that he causes, but no, everybody seems okay. He's just really pissed the rest of his life. And you can just tell he has a lot of anger in his heart towards him, and he wants to get back to that wizard to show him a thing or two. And that becomes Mark Strong. Now, me personally, I do want to say off the bat, just for this one, I do think not Mark Strong himself, but this villain, Dr. Savannah, he's not really the strongest. I don't think he seems like he's really mad at his family, and he takes it out on them, sure, but I just don't see the motivation as to why to continue to keep going and doing everything that he's doing. He comes off as like very whiny to me, but I'm wondering if you think that. Did you like him in this movie?
I didn't hate him, but the way that I took it was that he wanted that power, but it was taken away from him. And so that's why he's so obsessed and pissed off with, finding that power, not only to make himself feel better and stronger as a person, but to also prove to his dad and his brother wrong too. Because, you also get that vibe like right before he kills him and he goes up and, to their place of business that like they probably always scolded him because his dad ended up being a paraplegic. And then his brother was
Yeah.
always a dick to him. Even before the accident, he was an asshole to him. So he wanted to take that power, not only prove them wrong, but also wanted them to fear him because he wanted that power.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And I guess I saw that too. I don't know if I was really wanting more of that in the movie. Maybe it was already enough to look into. Just overall, for this kind of villain, I guess it's small enough to work since it's a very brand new kid getting this kind of sensation. But that's the villain that we have. That's the villain, and the rest of the movie it starts off with Billy Batson trying to get used to Shazam and his powers, and there's a big montage in the beginning with a supersonic man out of you going over his powers. Then he can punch walls. They're trying to find out what he can go through. Him learning all this stuff. Did you like that? I know a lot of people thought that was funny.
I mean, again, you know my type of humor. Again, it fit the spirit of the movie. It's really all that I can say about it. I mean, it's definitely not something that was like if that felt out of place. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah, for me, it started to pick up a lot more when shit started to go down. And for example, he messed up that bus, which is totally his fault, by the way. Which I think is kind of silly when he like saves that bus when he's the one who ended up fucking it up in the beginning. And yeah, they're trying to feel like how can you fix this bus? How can you save the bus? Ends up catching it. Everything works out,
right.
and then he's just a dick the rest of the time because he has this power and. It's kind of this conflict that I see coming because I always saw from the beginning that he was going to get this his friend that he was with who was helping him out. He's going to be a dick to him, because he's a cripple and he wants to be that. So that's kind of predictable. I think it starts hitting the fan when Mark Strong comes into play and really starts to become a bigger threat to him. And even though as a bigger threat, all he does is really like fight him through a mall and just like punch him around all over
That's
places.
one thing that I will say that's really bad in this movie is the fight scenes. I mean, it when you think about it in hindsight, the reason why the fight scenes are bad is because he's a fucking kid and he doesn't know what he's doing. But like even like
Right.
Dr. Savannah, like the fighting was just so clunky to me. It was just like, oh my god, like this is like they're supposed to be fighting. Like I thought the fights between the Shazam family and the Seven Deadly Sins was like cooler than the fights that he had with Savannah.
Yeah, no, I would agree actually. This is one thing that I don't know if they have the better strong hand when it comes to cinematography. For example, someone like James Wan could have made this look really cool, but even the first time I watched, especially riding off some crazy choreography like that from the last movie, and some of the CG didn't look all that great. It's almost like they didn't give Shazam a bigger budget for some reason. I don't know. At some points, especially towards the end, when it's just Shazam versus Savannah, it's almost like they're colliding like two action figures, and then they just kind of explode next to each other, which you actually kind of see in the scene next to that. But no, I'm not the biggest fan of the action. I think that's one of the things that let me down a little bit here. I think it's a little bit better when it's just a bunch of CG stuff with the family fighting the seven deadly sins, like you said. Just more creative wise, they do a lot of crazy stuff at the carnival, but no, I mean nothing spectacular here. Nothing that really. There's not like that big memorable scene that you walk away remembering, like the Colosseum fight or the Italy fight or anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's some really cool parts where they save people and different the kids are learning different ways to use their powers and stuff, but it's definitely not as grounding or as awesome as Aquaman is in my opinion. um I mean, that's really, again, like our Shazam recap and discussion is not going to go really much further than this. Like, when I think about this movie, I think that this movie is literally just there, and it doesn't really do much for me beyond that. Um, Again, don't even get me started on the bodysuit. Like, I think I'm sure that Zachary Levi worked out. I'm sure he did, but like the bodysuit to me also didn't really make the movie that much better. I mean, it doesn't really look all that great.
I was gonna ask you what you thought about Zachary Levi before we finished up. Like, how do you think about him and the chemistry with the kid, or them being the same person?
Oh, I like Zachary Levi. I think he was a perfect fit for it. I think he did great in the way that he was directed and told to go. I mean, again, not his fault that the fighting sucks in the movie, but I mean, it is what it is. Like that's how the movie was written. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much basically it. I mean, there's this little cameo joke at the end of the movie where Superman shows up because he told Freddy that he would get him to show up, but it's not even like Henry Cavill. It's like some
You just see
skinny,
his body, yeah.
yeah, you just see some skinny cuck from the neck down wearing a Superman suit, and it's supposed to be him. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how the movie ends.
And anything that you right off the bat would have preferred from it, or maybe hope you see from a sequel?
I you know I kind of I thought it would have been cool to have like Man of Steel level esque type of fighting in the movie. Obviously, I'm
Yeah,
not asking for like destruction and like blown up buildings and stuff like that, but I do think the fighting style could have been again a lot more or a lot much better.
maybe some
Um,
bigger stakes.
yeah, maybe some bigger stakes. Like even like the villain, I don't even really think was all that great either. Like the seven deadly sins and all that stuff. I mean, if I had to give a final verdict of the movie, um, I think it'd be a 7 for me. I can't give it a 6 because it didn't suck. I didn't roll my eyes or didn't feel annoyed while watching the movie, but it's got its issues and it's literally just there. Is is really the best way that I could describe it and why I'm giving it a 7.
Yeah, I would say about the same 7 out of 10 for me. Reason being is because it's competently made. It's not as silly as Aquaman. There aren't as many scenes that are so terrible that they take you out of the movie like Aquaman has. Overall, I would say I have more fun with Aquaman, but when it comes to how I see the same movies on a level about the same, 7 out of 10. I hope a little bit better for the next one. I would like to see something that really has a memorable scene in it. I've heard people compare this movie to have a Sam Raimi Spider-Man feel. I personally don't see that. I don't. Yeah, I've seen that
Not
complaint.
at
Not a
all.
complaint. I've seen that comparison so much, and I've tried to watch it with that mindset. I can't see it. To me, there's always so many memorable scenes that Sam Raimi has in those movies, and there's not really that big scene that I'm going to think about with
And there's
Shazam. So
nothing memorable about Shazam. Like the only thing that really pops in my mind for Shazam was the Shazam family, and that's it.
yeah,
Like
and granted, I like the family, but it's not really anything that sticks out to me when I think of the movie. So
I just
yeah,
apparently there will be a Black Adam movie coming out. Again, I don't know how that's going to be done, but apparently The Rock has been casted as him. Shut up,
Smash!
bitch. But he's projected to be or casted to be as Black Adam. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, The Rock is essentially the Arnold Schwarzenegger of our generation. Like
Oh yeah, no doubt.
he's like the top action swole act movie guy now, just like Arnold was in our parents' day and age. So I mean, we'll see how that turns out. And I know we got a couple years, so that comes out.
Yeah, and I think that's all we got for that one. We're gonna be wrapping up pretty soon here. I was wondering if you want to go ahead and touch up on this now, or save it for later when it comes to Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Zack Snyder's Snyder Cut. Um,
Zack
uh,
Snyder is the director. Sorry, what?
Zack Snyder is releasing the Snyder Cut. Um, so this has been something that has been a constant uproar in the comic book community since I want to say like maybe 2016. Um, yeah, that sounds about right. Um,
2016?
well, maybe 2017. I'm sorry.
Like Justice League came out in 2017.
Yeah, but I thought that there was like speculations that he wasn't getting his own movie or that the cut wasn't right in 2016.
Okay, I got you.
So that's why I said 2016. But this has basically been an uproar in the comic book community for the last 4 years, and we've touched base on it. I want to say probably in all three of these episodes. We just by the time those were recorded, this wasn't announced yet. But basically, the long story short of it is that Zack Snyder was in the process of making Justice League. He had a terrible tragedy. His daughter committed suicide. Um, he ended up leaving for obvious reasons. WB saw it as an outing to take this universe to go in a completely different direction without being lazy enough to reboot the entire thing. They hired Joss Whedon on to do this to finish his work for the Justice League.
From
Um,
Avengers fame, yeah.
yeah, and basically made it an Avengers version of Justice League, and that was it. That was all that we got. It was under 2 hours long, because WB was scared that it might be too long, and they wanted to go completely in the opposite direction of what Snyder had planned or in what he had already made. Fast forward to God, I want to say what late April is when this stuff got announced.
About a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, about a month ago. I mean, as we record today, it's Friday, June 12th, going into June 13th of 2020, where it got announced. He did it on a Vero stream that he was talking about, and they ended up announcing it on May 20th, is what it was. They announced it May 20th. And basically, what's going to be happening now is because HBO and Cinemax have partnered with each other to bring people HBO Max come next year. I believe in May of 2021, his version of Justice League will be released. And for the longest time, you and me just did not believe that this was a thing. And this ties back to what you said earlier about how we were wrong, but we were also kind of right too.
Yeah, it's it's something I'm not gonna pretend like I wasn't. Ever since this whole release of Snyder Cut shenanigans was going around on the internet, thought it was complete nonsense, and to an extent, I still do, but for a different reason. But there was all these news articles coming out about, oh, the truth is that there's this whole other cut that you guys have not seen. You guys have only seen Joss Whedon's version. There's a whole other part, but the whole reason why I did not buy any of that is because of the fact that when we were following along with this dude, it was blatantly obvious that the movie was not done being shot. He was still working on it. There was like no trailers, nothing like that yet. He was working on this movie, and then this tragedy happened. Again, I feel bad for the guy. Rest in peace to his daughter. But that's why he had to leave, and because of that, the movie was not done. He did not finish the movie. They brought in Joss Whedon later and admitted that they had him redo a lot of the movie itself. So me thinking that there was this whole other version of a movie that was completed somewhere, WB was locking it behind some kind of crazy wall that nobody knew about. It just seemed ridiculous to me. It was fucking ludicrous. It just didn't make any sense.
Well, that's where the toxic fan base comes in. Is that they have, because what it is that they think is that they think that Zack Snyder completed this movie and or was probably 98.99% of the way done with this movie.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was that his daughter died, and then WB said, "Fuck you, Zach. We're gonna take this film that you have finished almost completely, and we're gonna
Yes.
lock it away in our big giant vault. And nobody's gonna fucking see this movie because we don't want anyone to see it because we want to start making money with DC." And that's really how a lot of these like fanboys think, is that they just took away this man's movie and just shelled it away from everybody because that's what it is that they wanted to do. But here's the part where we're not wrong. How do you take away a movie that's not finished? It's taking another year to be completed, right? So here we are in May of 2020 when it got announced. We're now in mid-June 2020. Why is it going to take an additional $30 million to finish this movie, to add special effects, to add scores, to add, I don't know, maybe potential reshoots, a full year to complete this movie? And he doesn't even know which format it is that he wants to do it. He doesn't know if he wants to do a Watchmen director's cut version of it, where he cuts a 3.5 to 4 hour film, or he wants to split it up into 6 different parts like a TV series.
They're still debating. Yeah.
They're still debating that. So how can you sit there and say that the Snyder Cut exists when it's not finished?
That's the thing that I find so misleading, because HBO did not announce the Snyder Cut is here. They announced that Zack Snyder's Justice League will be coming next year. And people love to take that and roll with it, right? Because I'm not going to act like everybody was like this. There's a lot of toxic people out there who are like, no, you're wrong. You don't understand. The whole cut was completed. But I actually have seen some other people who were like, no, I'm not saying that the movie's done. I'm just saying that the resources are there for WB to pick it up and finish it. That would make more sense to me if everybody was like, finish the cut or complete the cut, something like that. But everybody's acting like it's a secret golden cut locked away in a treasure chest that you have to get like a Mission Impossible style.
Or that you hear in Indiana Jones that that is only around due to fables and lore. Like
Indiana Jones and the Legend of the Snyder Cut. Basically, yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is like if they had used, finish the Snyder Cut, that could be something I can probably get more behind. But because the toxic fan base is just so up their own ass and is like, release it. It got to the point where they're harassing WB on all their social medias, telling them to release a Snyder cut. And to me, like, this is a good and a bad thing because the good thing is that okay, well, it sounds like that there's interest in it. And that's the thing is that you and me have always been level-headed people to the point of where if we're wrong, we'll admit that we're wrong.
Right.
Like, and that's fine. Like, I don't have to fucking be right about everything in my life. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, if I was wrong, I'm wrong. Fine. But you have this toxic fan base that basically kicked and screamed for 4 years to get a cut of a movie that, again, was not finished to be released. And now they think that they pretty much it's like victory for them. And that's the part that bothers me is because what happens now when there's another like the dispute or another issue with studio meddling? Are we going to get people to keep boycotting and harassing the studio to release something that may again not even exist? Like,
Exactly. Yeah. That's
like
the thing.
you see it with David Ayer now.
Now they're like, oh, where's the Ayer cut? We want the Ayer cut. And fucking David Ayer is encouraging them too, which is absolutely fantastic. But the thing is, dude, like you mentioned, every single WB post for the past couple years has been bombarded. They can't put like an announcement of anything. They can't put a trailer for anything without release the Snyder cut, release the Snyder cut, release the Snyder cut. It's like, and the thing is, I get that you're passionate for this, man. I absolutely get it. Fine. You want this cut to be released. That's fine. But I just think this sets a terrible precedent. And I've seen people dispute this fact, but I'm completely disagree, and I have to stand in what I think. And I think this is good and bad. Good for the people who want this cut and who if Zack Snyder really didn't get the full opportunity, which he obviously didn't, to express what his version would have been fully, I think it's cool for him to finally get that, and we can see, is this going to be worse than what we got? Who knows? I mean, that's for time to tell. But now this can tell me.
I have also said too that maybe in hindsight, if we had gotten everything full circle, maybe Man of Steel and maybe Batman vs Superman wouldn't be as bad as they are now. Maybe if we had gotten his full right, if we had gotten his full vision, because remember this was supposed to be 3 movies. It was supposed to be, I guess, Superman dying or them realizing that they lost against Darkseid. The first movie, the second movie, they do the time traveling, and then the third trilogy or the third part of the trilogy, they go back and undo everything and pretty much pull a Flashpoint paradox. Who knows, again, in the alternate reality, that if we got his full vision in all 3 of these movies, that maybe this whole saga would have actually been good.
Could have been. Yeah, sure. Could have been better. Could have been worse. We'll never know. And now the thing is, some people are going to have this in mind. I think it gives the illusion that the audience has more power when it comes to that. Now they're going to bombard every other kind of studio for every little thing that they want. And it's just going to be a lot of whining and picking and choosing what they want. And the thing is, I think that hurts creativity in the future. I think that hurts whoever is up and coming, working on certain things. They're going to be bombarded with people on Twitter, people on the internet. Oh, if you're going to make this movie, you have to do this. Hashtag this, hashtag do this. And I just think it's a horrible thing to do. I think it's kind of irresponsible to give the crowd this much power when it comes to this. Again, that's just my opinion, but I'm happy that this is happening to an extent. I'm scared of what this will do in the future. But when it comes down to it, it's happening. And if we were wrong and they mentioned that, oh, this cut is going to come out next month, or this cut is going to come out in 2 months, I would absolutely eat my words. I kept saying it was not real. Oh, sorry. Turns out it was real. I'm wrong. But the thing is, I don't believe that, because this is not speculation. They're taking another year, just like you mentioned. They have stated they're spending another $30 million to finish it, not to release it, because they know they have to
because
add all this shit.
if it was already done, then they would have already put it out. Here's the thing too. I know we discussed earlier too, not on this episode, but in the past, that normies are not going to give a shit about this movie, right? They're not gonna run to the masses and be like, man, Snyder cut? What do you mean? What do you mean Snyder cut? Didn't we already get Justice League a couple years ago and that one sucked?
Justice League again? What?
I'm telling you, this is HBO's marketing ploy. When this movie comes out, they're gonna see a huge spike and membership increases because people want to watch this. People like you and me that would actually pay money to see this and get a membership to watch it will get it. But what'll end up happening is that they'll end up canceling probably after the fact that they watch it, and that's it. Now, granted, they already technically collected everybody's money who ended up subscribing for it anyway. Maybe they'll be able to get away with free trials and shit like that too. Who knows? But I imagine people are going to want to watch it more than once. So in a way, nobody's really losing any money because they're going to make that money back anyway.
Like I was saying, they don't have to worry about the theater costs for getting the reels over to theaters and worrying about how much money they're gonna make in the box office. No, they can just throw it on streaming, and people want to watch it. They'll probably just see a sales increase in their memberships, and that'll be good enough for them. That's probably worth a $30 million. On top of that, thinking that they're gonna get the goodwill with all the people who've been chanting "release the Snyder Cut," right? They're like, okay, well, we'll be on the good side of them. That's good press. People who are curious will check it out. The normies, so they might not care, but it might still be worth them $30 million. So that's kind of where they're at.
Right. Like I said, I think they'll probably make that back easy because there's thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people who probably want to see this movie. So yeah, go figure. But just to sum it up, like I said, we're not that prideful to admit that we're not wrong, because I'm wrong about a lot of stuff, as I'm sure a lot of people are, but we're not wrong about this. There was no imaginary cut that existed behind the golden diamond plated vault at WB Studios.
I'm standing on this hill, man. Nope, there was no secret thing like that. They're finding a way to finish it for their own reason, which is fine. Do whatever you got to do, but to act like, oh, you were wrong, there was this cut the whole time. I'm sorry. I have to say you're mistaken, and that's my stance on that.
And the difference is that look at Batman vs Superman extended edition. That is a full cut of a movie. That literally is whatever deleted scenes that he had missing from the theatrical cut. He put them in the extended version, and that is a full ensemble cut of the film.
Right.
It came out when the movie came out on Blu-ray and DVD, and that's a full cut of a film. Okay, it's not like he announced, "Hey guys, Batman vs Superman extended cut is being finished right now." No, it's something that was already completed and pushed out. This is an entirely different animal.
Yeah, it is, and this is an extension, it's a whole other thing. We'll see what happens. I'm interested to see what will be taken away from the current version, what will be added in the new one that we haven't seen. If this really makes a big difference, and if it really makes a big difference, what is DC gonna follow? Are they gonna follow the original cut we got in theaters, or are they gonna follow this one? Who knows? DC is a big mess, at least when it comes to timelines right now, and what's the consistency of their canon. So it's just another thing to add on top of that.
Yeah, and I agree. And with that being said, I think that wraps up our DC discussion. I think we covered everything. Right? Yeah, thank Christ. As you guys probably haven't figured it out, Star Wars is going to be our next episode. We don't know how we're going to do this yet. I think it might be a doozy. We kind of wanted to do it all in one episode next time, but we're very weary on people's time. So we might have to do a two-parter.
We might have to do maybe like trilogies, maybe like one trilogy, 2, 3. We'll figure it out. But yeah, some stuff to talk about Star Wars. It's my favorite topic. Big Star Wars fan. Get ready for some deep insight in there, and we'll move on to the next one after.
Yeah, and as always, whoever is listening to us, thank you. We see the views on YouTube. We see the comments. Anybody who is reposting us, David, thank you. We definitely do appreciate the views and listens. Josh, thank you. Obviously this is something that we do as a hobby, but we definitely do appreciate anyone that gives a shit enough to listen to what two, I guess, nerds have to say about nerd culture. And again, if anybody ever wants to write in or say anything or leave us a review, I mean, we've been doing this for the last, I want to say, year and a half almost?
Year and a half. Couldn't have said it any better, guys. Again, this is just something stupid we do on the side. I don't think anybody cares about, but it does make things a lot more fun for us. So we appreciate you if you got this far. Definitely write us in, back to formulapodcast@gmail.com. We're open to anything. Tell us we suck. Tell us what you like, don't like. Send us suggestions.
But it's the internet. don't be too harsh. I mean, not that we really give a shit anyway, because I mean, obviously we do care about criticism, but don't be a dick.
I mean,
You can be. You can provide constructive criticism and not be rude.
I mean, I feel like that's just kind of baiting, but hey, if it makes us better in any way, I'm open to it. So,
that too.
Thank you guys. We'll catch you on the next one, and see you later. Bye.
Bye.